God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is weekend number 14 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California, sporting what I believe to be a Golden Gophers hoodie today. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California, and I have to say, I cannot wait for today's big show. I think this is going to be one of our finest big shows ever, Mr. Hoyseth, because you, my friend, are going to have the opportunity to extensively talk about your hatred for Jared Goff and Brandon Staley. Mr. Hoyseth, how are you doing?
Yeah, well, we might as well get out of the gate quickly with my sweatshirt. I was looking at the bowl games this week, Dave, and I saw that the Gophers somehow got a bowl game.
How did that happen? They didn't win 6 games.
Some sort of special thing they got because of their GPA or their grades or something. Something weird. I didn't really read about it, but they got a special exemption for grade point average or something. Something weird, right? And then, this is how crazy the bowl game thing has gotten, Dave. Dave, they had the worst quarterback on the planet this year. Okay, yes. I don't know if you watched them. They were, yeah. Okay, so he entered the transfer portal 2 days ago. His backup entered the transfer portal the same day. So they have one quarterback on scholarship for this bowl game, never thrown a pass in his life as far as I know. And that's who's going to be a quarterback. These bowl games are just getting crazy, Dave.
When is this horrific bowl game going to occur?
I don't know, but it's I got to watch it just to see the ineptitude because, I mean, really, they were so undeserving of any type of bowl game whatsoever. And now, you know, they've got one quarterback left on scholarship. I don't think the kid's ever played, and he's going to be basically playing the entire game as far as I know.
Well, I don't think it could be really any worse. And just to explain to the folks out there how bad this Minnesota Golden Gopher quarterback is, if you put it in the terms of a quarterback in the National Football League, you just look at the revolving door of the New York Jets quarterback room. I mean, Tim Boyle completely out of the room after 2 starts, and we all know how great Zach Wilson is. This is the same kind of level of ineptitude in the quarterback room for the Golden Gophers.
Dave, you know, Boyle is not a good name for football.
It just isn't.
It's really not a good name, Boyle, to be a quarterback, I don't think, you know.
It just isn't. Hey, so as I mentioned, we are going to get to hear from Brad today as he rips on Jared Goff extensively. And, of course, Brandon Staley.
Dave, then you've got the Oregon Ducks, who went from a week ago thinking they were possibly going to play in the Final Four. And now they're playing Liberty. And if you've seen the Liberty Mutual commercials, I work with a couple of Duck fans, and I said, "Who are you playing, Liberty Bibberty?" What, are you kidding me? What's the chances that any of those kids are going to play?
I mean, if Bo Nix had just one more shot at it, you know, just had an extra minute on the clock, that game could have been different because there was no defense played in that game at all.
All right, let's jump into it, Dave. I'm going to get right into your favorite teams first. It's the Lions at the Bears, which the line on that game is the Lions are 3.5-point favorites at Chicago. I find this to be a little bit low, Dave. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Bears really don't have anything to play for. Lions haven't looked very good recently, starting with that debacle on Thanksgiving against the Packers, right? But really, their defense hasn't looked very good at all. But that doesn't really scare me. I got to take the Lions in this one on the road. They have a lot more to play for. They got to kind of get things turned around and get going in the right direction here before the playoffs, which is strange to say that Detroit is nearly a lock to make the playoffs, but they do have some teams now kind of looking them in the rearview mirror, and it's time to pick it up if you're Detroit.
Notice America, seriously, how Brad Hoysef doesn't even mention the quarterback of the Detroit Lions.
Jared Goff is going to have a huge game this week, Dave. That's my prediction.
There we go. There we go. Brad chimes in with his Jared Goff prediction. Look, I don't know if Jared Goff is going to have a huge game. The Chicago Bears team has, quite frankly, surprised me with the amount of wins they have so far this season. Is it enough for them to save their head coach and their general manager, or is regime change coming once again to the area of Illinois that we call Chicago? Is the winter coming to Chicago is the real question. I'm with you, Brad. This is a game that the Lions need to win to get back on track, should win. And if they lose, well, then we are just talking about the same old Detroit Lions again. It just happens to be in a division where the Vikings, quite frankly, don't have a quarterback, and Jordan Love is still a year away from being the next Aaron Rodgers.
Well, all I know about this game, Dave, is the Bears don't stop anybody throwing the ball. So
you've got that right. I mean,
they are terrible against the pass. I expect Jared Goff to get things turned around. He's looked a little bit more like Jared Goff the last few weeks. Not very good. But this week, I believe he'll get a turnaround. Lions should win big in Chicago.
All right, moving on to the Indianapolis Colts at the Cincinnati Bengals. I was moderately surprised by this line after watching the Bengals play on Monday Night Football. Colts favored by a point. I like the Bengals in this game. I think they've got a nice young quarterback there. They've been able to shore a couple things up on the defensive side of the ball. And if they can just provide some protection and continue to actually run the unforgotten one, I should have said the forgotten one, but now I'm calling him the unforgotten one, which is Joe Mixon. It's like they just realized they have Joe Mixon still on their team, Brad. And I like the Cincinnati Bengals in this one. They're going to go on a bit of a run here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Jake Browning looked really good last week. I don't know how long he keeps that up, but I'll
tell you what, longer than Josh Dobbs will.
Hey, look, Browning figured out one thing last week. Find number one. Jamar Chase. Yeah. I mean, if you can find one, you're all right, right? So Mixon has always been, I think, a serviceable back. I've always liked him. I had to talk you into him last year or the year before, if I recall. I kept telling you I was a big Joe Mixon guy. But Cincinnati's a Heckle and Jekyll team this year. They're just kind of you don't really know what to both these teams, really. I didn't really like the game when you picked it. But I'm with you. I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to get the one.
Yeah, I picked it because our saying is, top 10 games worth actually spending some money on. And this was way more interesting than a Patriots game. I have to say. And thank you so much, Brad, for saying, hey, Dave, let's go to the tape of when I actually told you that you should take Joe Mixon, because that would cause an all-nighter for me to hunt that one down.
Well, I don't want to go to the tape of last week's show because I didn't have a very good show. Yeah. So I might as well go back a couple of years to Joe Mixon, right? But
right, exactly.
My next game is the Eagles at the Cowboys. Some would say this is the game of the week, right? I mean, it's the Eagles, took a loss last week. That had to hurt a little bit. I think we found out, Dave, who the best team in the NFC was and the NFL last week. I think that's pretty clear with the Niners right now.
Yeah.
But now, if you're the Eagles, you gotta worry about maybe losing your lead on your division, because the Cowboys are one game back. They're playing great football. And I played the over and under in this one, which is at 52. I'm going to take the under in that. I think the Cowboys defense is pretty stout, and I think that Eagles offense, these games tend to go a little lower when it's a big game like that. And it's two teams that know each other very, very well. I just felt like 52 was a pretty high number, so I'm going to take the under in that one. I think it's more in the mid-40s, that game.
Yeah, I like the over, actually, in this one. It should be a great game. I mean, I would anticipate that the Cowboys will end up winning this game. A side note to all of this is, earlier in the day, I was on that app called X, and I came across a story about Mike McCarthy, how he had been essentially rushed to the hospital earlier in the day. And then I jumped onto some work calls, and while I was on a work call, I was like, checked ESPN and I checked NFL.com, and I saw nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. So I thought, all day I've been thinking I got duped by some story, but as it turns out, he had an appendix issue. He had emergency surgery earlier today, and apparently is doing well and will recover fully and will be able to coach this Sunday. But just an interesting side note nonetheless. I think the Cowboys are going to flat out win this game. That's what these Eagles and Cowboys do. They tend to play less defense than they normally do against other teams. The Cowboys offense has definitely been on a roll. That Eagles secondary, and now even their linebackers are questionable at times. I like the over a lot in this one.
I agree with you. I think the Cowboys win this game. I think the Eagles are in a little trouble. I mean, they kind of mailed it in for about 7 or 8 straight weeks. They were beating teams that weren't great, but were less than impressive along the way. Their pass defense is terrible. And, yeah, I agree. I think the Cowboys win this game. I have a sense I think the Cowboys could kind of blow them out, Dave. I don't see it being a close game.
I've been waiting all week. I agree, Brad. I've been waiting all week to say this. This year's Eagles looks a lot like last year's Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, I mean, really, winning a lot of close games, and I don't want to piss off the Philadelphia area at all and have anybody come after me, comparing Jalen Hurts to Kirk Cousins or anything like that. But a lot of close games. All right, moving on. Speaking of the Vikes, our Minnesota Vikings are heading to Sin City to do battle with the Las Vegas Raiders. A word out of Edina, Minnetonka. Where is that Viking training facility these days now, Brad? Word out of Minnesota is that Josh Dobbs will indeed be the starting quarterback this week. I think that they should go ahead and cancel their subscription to the Josh Dobbs app and move off of him before it's too late. Let one of the other quarterbacks have a shot. Still, I like the Vikings running game enough in this game. Regardless of who's quarterback, TJ should score a couple touchdowns. And I just have no belief in this Las Vegas Raider team at all. They were better off with Carr as their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to take the Vikes myself. I'm intrigued to see what Josh Dobbs can do this week. He's got Justin Jefferson now. That's the first time since he's been the quarterback there. And it'll be interesting to see how those two work together. He's been kind of overusing TJ Hawkinson, and then for a couple of weeks he didn't have the little number 3 guy. I can't remember his name, but so now the Vikings appear to be healthy. They've had a week off going to Vegas. Speaking of Vegas, recently I've had a lot of friends that go to Vegas, right? They all come home sick, Dave. I don't know what the deal is. People go to Vegas, they come home sick. I finally looked at one of my workmates and I said, I guess what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas because you're bringing it back here with you, right? I mean, but the Vikings, yes. I think they go there. I think they get a win this week, Dave. I think they're a better football team. I think their defense is playing a lot better than they were a year ago. And I think you're going to regret those words on Josh Dobbs. I think he's going to be just fine.
I want to be wrong. I absolutely want to be wrong about Josh Dobbs. And I should give Aiden O'Connell some credit. He's been pretty good as a rookie quarterback for the Raiders, and the Raiders certainly have a strong enough running game if they actually remember to hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs. So this could be an interest. Vegas is probably right about the spread. It's going to be a lot closer than we sort of think it's going to be. I'm with you. Getting sick this last couple weeks because I've got a Vegas trip actually coming up, Brad, not this weekend, but next weekend. So my plan was to get sick before I went to Vegas. So when I come back, I'll be fine. And I will say this, I'm sticking to my Vegas rule, which is never spend more than 2 nights in Vegas in a row.
I agree with you. I've stopped going to Vegas quite a while ago. I'm not a big fan of the city. I just used to be fun way back in the day. You could sit at a blackjack table and play a $2 table, sit there with your buddies all night long and have a blast. You just can't do that anymore. And I'm not one of these guys that has an endless supply of money, Dave. So I'm not interested in sitting at a $20 blackjack table. Just not my style.
I'm not interested in sitting at a $20 blackjack table, but I'm happy to watch people play at a $100 poker table and just stand there and watch. We've got our kids, a couple of the kids' 21st birthday, and it's a family tradition on my wife's side of the fence to do a family trip to Vegas. So it should be an interesting weekend.
So, Dave, if Josh Dobbs goes out and looks great, are you going to commit to buying yourself a little holiday Josh Dobbs jersey?
I need the Vikings. I will not commit to that. Not right now. I need more than that. I need Josh Dobbs to lead them to a winning record. If he does that, then NFL shop, here I come.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. Dave Dobbsa.
Yeah, Dave.
Change your name. Dave Dabba.
Exactly. All right, Mr. Hoysef, what do you got next?
All right, my next game on the docket is your favorite team, the Giants. They're at home against the Packers.
Are they still in the NFL?
The Packers are a 6.5-point favorite on the road. How bad are the Giants, Dave?
Just terrible. I think anybody that takes the Giants is crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take the Giants because I just feel like the air is going to come out of the balloon at some point with Green Bay. They've been playing a little bit better football. Got the nice win over the Lions. 6.5. That just seems a little rich for my blood. On the road, I mean, I know New York is terrible, but it just feels like a really low scoring affair where the Packers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers won it. I just thought 6.5 was a lot. I'm going to take the G-men at home. Yeah.
6.5 is a lot. If you asked me 4 weeks ago, would I ever pick the Packers? Regardless of who they're playing against, if they were giving up 6.5 in a game, and the answer, of course, would have been no. Look, Jordan, we've got to give him his credit. We've got to get Matt LaFleur his credit as well. They have definitely turned things around. The Packers wide receivers actually ran some patterns last week, Brad. And despite your statements last week about the Packers wide receivers having a hard time holding on to balls, they made some absolutely incredible catches in that game. So I like the it's like the Packers organization heard Brad Hoysef last week and were bitter. And took it to heart. It's like you ended up on their whiteboard. So I'm taking the Packers in this one. Giants are just terrible. It's just bad.
Yeah, I know they're terrible. They're still not as bad as the Jets, and they're still not as bad as there's a couple teams. There's some bad teams out there this year, Dave. But that Packer win was another impressive one. They beat the Chiefs. I mean, I'm not sure the Chiefs, though, Dave, are a great football team this year. I'm really not.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll capture some thoughts on the Chiefs coming up here in just a little bit. And in fact, our next game, Brad, because you brought it up, I'm going to make the big shift. We're going to talk about the Chiefs, who are at home against the Buffalo Bills. And this was like, also, if you asked me 4 weeks ago if the Chiefs would be favored by just 1.5 points at home against the Buffalo Bills this particular season, would I believe that would be the case? And I would have been like, absolutely not. Like the sky must have fallen if that's happened. Patrick Mahomes must have gotten hurt. Something must have gone terribly wrong with the Kansas City Chiefs organization. Taylor Swift broke up with Travis Kelce. Suddenly these lines are dropping. So none of that actually happened. But what's happened is at the end of the day, yes, we can talk about the wide receivers, and that's been well documented by a bunch of other people and other shows. But it's not just that. The real issue here is the left tackle and the right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes clearly, if you go back and watch the tape, clearly has no faith in those two particular players on his offensive line right now, which is why he's running and getting out of the pocket and scrambling earlier. He's not having the time to actually make the reads necessary. And that right there is the big issue. That being said, Buffalo is an up and down organization, an up and down team this year. I could see the Bills, winning this game pretty easily. But I'm going to believe that Kansas City's going to right the ship this week against Buffalo. This is a big rivalry game for both teams. I like the Chiefs. I'll give up the 1.5.
Yeah, I've waffled on this thing a couple of times, and because the Bills have been absolutely terrible on the road. They're like 1-4 on the road.
Yeah, waffle over to Buffalo, Brad.
But I am going to waffle over to Buffalo, Dave, because there's a thing called desperation. Dave, the Bills have outscored the Bills are not bad. They've outscored their opponents by over 100 points. So how they've managed to only get themselves to 6-6 is a complete mystery to me, because they're a better team than that.
Yeah.
And I just think the Chiefs are kind of on the ropes right now. They didn't look very good against the Packers. That's the second time in about 3 weeks they haven't looked very good. They're coming home. They don't really have a deep threat to throw to. The days of Tyreek Hill are gone. McCole Hardman can't keep healthy. And there's just nobody that's developed as a deep threat for this football team. Isaiah Pacheco now is a little bit dinged up. I'm going to go with the Bills in this one. I just feel like they need this a lot more than the Chiefs do. At 6-6, if they lose this one, they're now starting to look on the outside in terms of the playoffs. And they got to get a win. I know that it's bucking all the trends. They're 1-4 on the road and all that kind of stuff. The Chiefs are pretty good at home, but I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going to roll the dice on this one and take the 1.5.
I'm going to, all really valid, good points, Brad. Glad to see you make the move over to the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to stick with the Macy's Magic, which is essentially the magic of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. These guys know how to beat Buffalo. It's probably going to be a close game. It's so funny, Brad, like how two bad offensive linemen can change. It can actually change the entire outlook of the team. I mean, it is, an injury certainly play a part in that. And of course, wide receivers you've never heard of before play a part in that. But I still contest that if Patrick Mahomes had more time, we'd be you'd be looking at this game in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, if this game was 8 weeks ago, we probably would have been talking about it being the game of the week,
Yeah.
But it's
absolutely
not.
Like, why didn't NBC flex it?
Right, exactly. But now we're looking at it like, well, obviously, Kansas City's not quite right, and the Bills are 6-6, and it certainly doesn't have the same feel as it would have had 7-8 weeks ago. That's for sure.
The good folks over at Amazon that just spent $1 billion on or whatever they spent, $100 million on a Black Friday midday football game are probably like, can't we flex that Buffalo Bills game, Kansas City game to Thursday night?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch that one though, because that's a big game for both those teams.
Yeah.
And just as we say that, the New England Patriots are on the board, Dave.
Oh,
they've scored on the Steelers.
Are they picking number 2?
I don't know. Dave, I'm telling you, this Steelers team is not very good. They're not very good. I'm stunned that they're over 500. Mike Tomlin, again, coach of the year, if he gets this team to the playoffs.
Yes, they are. They are really bad. The Steelers are absolutely horrible. I agree.
Bailey Zappi to Ezekiel Elliott, 11-yard touchdown.
It's just like it is terrible. I thought, for a couple weeks there, I thought, well, is Bailey Zappi the difference? Is he the difference maker? Is he gonna be the guy that actually puts us over the top? But I have changed my opinion on that. And Brad, you actually threw me there for a second. I was like, hey, I didn't know we were picking the Steelers game.
No,
I had to go to the sheet just to double check.
All right, what do you got next?
Okay.
Or is it me?
It is you.
Okay, Broncos at Chargers. No idea why I would pick this game other than the fact that, I don't like Brendan Staley, and I think that a game between he and the Broncos coach is like a complete mismatch. So on the road, the Broncos are at the Chargers. Chargers are a 3-point favorite, and I'm going to take the Broncos just because I think Sean Payton's a far superior coach to Brendan Staley, and it's about time the Chargers lose one disappointingly.
Yeah. I looked at this game and I was like, I don't know.
Does anybody really know when the Chargers are playing what's going to happen? Well, all we know is they're 5-7. They got a ton of talent, and they just barely show up half the time.
Yeah. Like, you are being too kind with your half the time. That is like, it's more like 40% of the time they show up. All right. So I went ahead and I took a Brandon Staley and the Chargers. I think just because I've got to believe that Brandon Staley knows that his job is absolutely on the line at this point and knows that they need to get this victory. And that should be enough incentive for him to figure out on the defensive side of the ball. Because remember, Staley is a defensive genius. Is supposed to be a defensive genius. The blueprint of how to stop Russell Wilson in 2023 is now available. It came out last week, Brad. And I think as Staley is doing his job, they will find a way to continue to shut down Russell Wilson. We'll get more of what we saw last week against the Broncos this week. It's just going to happen at SoFi in Los Angeles. I like the Chargers a lot, actually, in this one.
Interesting. You're on the Brendan Staley bandwagon, it seems.
Not so much the Staley bandwagon as also like their offense has to turn things around. And what the hell is wrong with Austin Eckler? Like, that was absolutely disgraceful last week. 6 points being put up by the Chargers. Just 6 points.
You know what's going to happen this week at least twice, because this Bronco defense can play a little defense. At least twice now, Brendan Staley's going to go for it on 4th down, and they're not going to get it. I'm just telling you, it's going to be you're going to regret taking Brendan Staley in this one.
All right, there you go. I hope you are correct about that. Now, I want to bring you back, Brad. I want to bring you back to a New York state of mind. You've already taken the Giants for some strange, bizarre reason. Now I'm going to
Giants and the Bills, by the way.
And the Bills, that's right. And now I'm going to give you an opportunity for the trifecta. Texans at the New York Football Jets, and it's so funny. Giants fans hate it if you put football in front of Jets. At the Jets. 5.5 point spread. The Texans actually favored by 5.5. Once again, 4 or 5 weeks ago, nobody would have ever believed that the spread coming into this game would be that. It's well documented at this point about how well the Texans have played on both sides of the ball. CJ Stroud appears to be the right pick in terms of who is going to be the best quarterback coming out of last year's draft class. For Bryce Young, we'll need to give him some more time, which is going to be a difficult thing in that, just horrific organization that Tepper is running with the Carolina Panthers at this point. But I absolutely love the Texans in this one big time. I mean, we're finally going to make the move as a Jets organization to start somebody other than Zach Wilson. And we're going to make that move about 4 weeks too late. And we finally make the move, and we hand the ball over to a guy named Tim Boyle. Boyle plays 2 games and then is just completely jettisoned out of the Jets organization. And they bring in Brett Rippon as their 3rd-string backup quarterback, which means the backup to Zach. I would love to be in the room of the New York Jets quarterback room. I would absolutely love to be. I don't need to be a fly. I want to be a human in the room, listening to what these people are saying. Watching Aaron Rodgers roll his eyes would be absolutely priceless. I mean, Tim Simeon is still somehow in the National Football League. I said this on another podcast earlier in the week. I'd much rather have 75-year-old Joe Flacco as my starting quarterback right now than Zach Wilson.
Dave, I'm going to take the Jets. I'm going to go for the trifecta. I've already gone so deep over the bridge with the Giants and the Bills that I might as well take 3 of them. I just felt like 5.5 was a way too big a line here. Yeah. I think Houston will win the game. Don't get me wrong, but I thought 5.5 was a lot. Houston has been really good at home, not so good on the road. 2-3 as a road team. They get a lot of home kicking, I've noticed, when they're at home. That doesn't happen. I just get a feeling the Jets are going to play a game here. They're going to keep it close. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. We've seen some kinks in the armor a little bit of C.J. Stroud. Jets can really play defense. They're really good at defense. They can do that. And so they just can't score many points. That's the problem. That's the rub. And Houston has been scoring, so it's probably a trouble spot for me there. But on the road, Houston isn't as good a team. Let's get a little weather in there, see what C.J. Stroud can do with some weather against those tough New York Jets.
All right. Hoysef with the trifecta. I'm so proud of you, Brad. It's like you're spotting me 3 games this week.
All right, my final game, Dave. Titans at the Dolphins. Dolphins are starting to look one of the best teams in football. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago I said I think people should put their money on the Dolphins. They're getting all the defensive guys back, the corners with Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, and they've looked pretty darn good. And man, Tyreek Hill, Dave, is there a more exciting player to watch than Tyreek Hill? I mean, 13.5 is a big line. I say take the Dolphins and give those 13.5.
Yeah, I mean, last wide receiver, I actually really just loved just watching, of course, was Randy Moss.
I thought Antonio Brown in his heyday was in a similar. I had a kind of similar feel to watching Antonio Brown play when he was with the Steelers and he was doing his thing when he was in his heyday that I do to Tyreek Hill. But Tyreek is on a different planet.
Yeah, he is, and Randy Moss is a different kind of wide receiver than Tyreek and AB, but for me, very similar sort of feeling for sure. I looked at this game, Brad, and I didn't really, see a reason. I mean, like, I hate any line in the National Football League, even if it's against the Patriots, the Giants, or the Jets. That's over 10 points. 13.5 is a lot. You were right, though, about 4 or 5 weeks ago when you started talking about the improvement on the Miami Dolphins defense, and that Vic Fangio, I think we all agree that Vic Fangio is a hell of a defensive coordinator. And I agree with you that this Dolphins team is probably the most dangerous team in the AFC entering week 14. We might feel different about that later in the season as we enter the playoffs. But if the playoffs were to start today, coming out of the AFC, like, you would have to really consider saying that the Dolphins were going to be the team to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. They are playing better than a lot of teams. Now, they don't play the same way against good teams that they do against bad teams. And the Tennessee Titans, quite frankly, are definitely Jekyll and Hyde. And this is, I've been waiting year after year after year for that true Tennessee Titan down year. And I think it's finally happening now. I like the Dolphins a lot in this one.
Dave, on top of all of that, I texted you during that game last week with the Dolphins. They had, I think, without question, the greatest celebration I've ever seen with the roller coaster ride. That was, it took some time to, put that choreography together. It was really well thought out. It was a lot of fun. It's just, I watched this Dolphin team. To me, they're just a lot of fun. I'd love to see them make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I am with you. All right. For the final game of the week, the San Francisco 49ers are at home against the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers favored by 10.5 points in this one. Like I said before, I do not like lines in the NFL that are over 10. I especially don't like lines in the NFL that involve two NFC West teams, regardless of how bad a football team is that year. And on top of it, in this particular case, we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks, which is essentially a good 500 team, maybe a little bit better than 500 at the end of the season. I looked at this. I agree with you that the 49ers coming out of last week proved that they're the best team in the NFL. Brad, on a couple of shows on Monday, I saw some people, I'm not going to mention their names, on a couple of different networks try to say that the San Francisco 49ers were the best team in the NFC. And then they couldn't actually say the NFL. Like, they couldn't bring it. They couldn't bring themselves to say it. The 49ers, with how they play on offense and defense and special teams, and with Brock Purdy staying within the system, with this particular running game, with their defensive line, with their secondary and their linebackers, as it stands today, with everybody's health being pretty good at this point, at this stage of the season, are by far the best team in the NFL entering week 14. I like the 49ers big in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, it's it's a big drop off after the Niners. I mean, I think the next two best teams are the Cowboys and the Eagles, and they have bludgeoned both those teams. They made a mess of the Cowboys. Now, I think the Cowboys are a better team than when they played them. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a more competitive game come playoff time. But I'm with you. I think the Niners they're the complete package. They just don't seem to have any holes whatsoever. They can run it. They can throw it. They play defense. They're tough. I mean, every quality you could possibly want in a championship quality team, the Niners have. And the Seahawks, to me, just look like a team that is kind of deteriorating slowly as this season goes on. They haven't looked very good in recent weeks. Pete Carroll looks frustrated. I think they're back about where they should be, actually. I think they had a good start to the season, and now they're back to being what we thought the Seahawks were going to be. And so I just think that the Niners, I worry about a little bit of a letdown after that win over the Eagles. 10.5 is a big line. But there's no question who the better football team is here. It's just a matter of numbers. Are they going to get a turnover or two and make it a rout, or is it the Seahawks going to keep it a 10 or so point game? I'm gonna go with the Niners. I just think they're too good. I think they're rolling right now.
This is just so much of a rivalry game up here in the Bay. That I was also worried about a letdown, and you could certainly see that happening if they were playing, I don't know, maybe the Cardinals, who they don't care about really at all. I mean, who cares about the Arizona Cardinals? Sorry, apologies.
Who are the Cardinals? Who are they?
Apologies to my family that lives in Arizona. This is just this 49er team is on a roll. They've got all the right pieces. If they can stay healthy, I think, Shanahan, if he can not get too cute, if they can start the game without running in reverse and, actually run one of their standard plays at the beginning of the game, and once again, not get too cute and not make mistakes early on, this should be a cakewalk for this 49ers team.
Yeah, I think one thing I saw last week is I saw a healthy Deebo Samuel, right? Oh. It's been a couple of years, really, but that play he made on that catch and exploding forward and getting that touchdown, he just outrun a bunch of guys, and he's a pretty special player, but he just hasn't been the same guy since he had that setback a couple of years ago or a year ago. And he looks healthy now, and that's just another weapon. Christian McCaffrey, there's nobody that I don't think is as good as him right now at running back. Purdy, if he just stays out of the way, I mean, Brandon Ayuk has developed into a really nice football player. They got one of the best tight ends in the league, and George Kittle. I mean, they're just – and when they got Trent Williams over there at left guard, I mean, all you got to do is run it over the left side, and you're going to get 5-6 every time.
Yeah, it's amazing. And McCaffrey is such a good running back. He reads holes. He's lost a bit of a step, which is probably a good thing, because he doesn't hit holes nearly as fast as he did early in his career, which in the NFL, actually makes a difference. And then I don't think the national media, and I don't even think you, Brad, are giving Brock Purdy enough justice. Look, the kid is living with another player. He's not making any money in the National Football League right now. He's making essentially the league minimum, and he's just been fantastic. For the most part, other than those 3 bad games they had collectively as a team, one of them wasn't his fault either. In the loss, Purdy statistically has been basically as good as anybody in almost any of the major categories as a quarterback in the NFL. He is, let's be clear, he is the captain of that ship. I mean, he is absolutely the captain. I mean, look, Spock is not running the ship, Brad. Brock Purdy is.
Look, Dave, I like Brock Purdy, okay? But I really love the situation he's in.
Yeah.
I mean, you got arguably the best tight end in the league, if not one of the top 2 or 3. You've got arguably the best running back in the league. I don't think anybody would argue with that. When healthy now, Debo, I think, is one of the best wide receivers in the league. You got, with Brandon Ayuk, one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the league. And you've got arguably the best left tackle in the league. I mean, he's got so much talent around him, and that talent is now finally healthy. For years, this 49er team just couldn't keep healthy. And so, yeah, I think he's done a really nice job of distributing. Hey, maybe Baker Mayfield could win there, Dave, with that talent.
He won a game for the Rams last year, Brad. How quickly we forget.
I think Baker could win there.
I disagree. I disagree.
How about Josh Dobbs?
Look, I disagree there too. I mean, and I'll say this, for young quarterbacks that have a chance to play in the National Football League, one of the most important things that a young quarterback needs to be able to do is read defenses and make adjustments. And those are the things that, Purdy is doing really well as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Look, he doesn't have the arm strength of, a lot of the other top 10 quarterbacks that you probably have rated ahead of him. But don't you want a quarterback that actually understands what the defense is presenting him and then makes, most of the time the appropriate adjustments? Who cares how great the kid's arm is if he's not going to be able to make the adjustments, Justin Fields? It is absolutely.
Dave, I feel like you're looking for an argument here. I'm going to agree with you. I think Brock Purdy's a good football player. Look, I don't think there's anything embarrassing about being a system quarterback.
Yeah.
There's always been this, Tom Brady was a system. At the end of the day, they're all system quarterbacks.
That's right.
They're all in a system, right? And so he's flourishing there. I give him credit, props. Mr. Irrelevant is no longer irrelevant. He's going to get a big payday. And I think he's going to win a Super Bowl. If they keep playing the way they're playing right now, I don't see anybody touching him. The question is, will he be the MVP of that Super Bowl? Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, the disrespect is everywhere. Saying that, that Brad not looking for a fight. I mean, bringing up the fact that Baker Mayfield and for God's sakes, Josh Dobbs.
All right, well, that was a little bit of a pot shot there, but
would be successful. All right, that is it for this week of the Gods of Odds. Hey, Brad, super quick, any parting words on anything?
Well, I don't know, Dave. I mean, the holidays. I'm glad to see you're back being healthy again. It seems to be a lot of sickness out there. So for you folks out there, take care of yourselves. Sit home, watch some football this weekend. Don't go out there and get crazy and get sick before the holidays. But, yeah, not much really, Dave. I don't got much to say today.
All right. I can say after the Golden Gophers and the Nebraska Cornhuskers set football back to black and white television era.
Rabbit ears. That's a rabbit ears game there.
Man, that is some bad football play by the Golden Gophers football. I am absolutely.
Dave, by the way, Dave, the row the boat thing's got to go away.
Yeah,
I'm so tired of the row the boat thing. I would say sink the boat. Okay, that's what I say at this point. Sink it. If you don't. Great football programs in college, they don't need mottos, Dave. They don't need a motto. Motto is winning, right?
There you go. That is. Then on that note, we will stop rowing the boat, and our motto is going to be winning going forward. That is that's the name of Hoysef's book. He should be writing. All right. That is it for week number 14 of Gods of Odds. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBob in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.